Good morning. I'm Dr. Francis Yahia, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the inner child and how we can identify what the inner child wants from our astrology chart. First, let's talk about what the inner child is. So, from the moment of conception, you get an impure thought that was rooted in what your parents felt about themselves at that moment. Those become your limiting thoughts or your limiting beliefs. During pregnancy, you get an emotion that's attached to that limiting thought. Every time you feel that emotion, it triggers the moment of conception. Oh my God, I belong to a family. My parents chose to have me. This is all obviously very subconscious. During birth, you get your physical body. That's all wrapped in a low level consciousness, which is what you come to do in the world, raise a consciousness one octave or one decadent. So that's sort of the setup of how the psyche works. From 0 to 7, you get your story. You already have your myth, your predisposed myth between your sun, your moon, and ascendant. But the thing is that from birth, you need a story to live out that mythology. So from 0 to 7, when you have that first, what I call crack in the snow globe, when you feel, oh my God, I don't belong, I'm not worthless, I'm not good enough, whatever judgment, shame, blame you lived out in your story, and we all have some of that many, many times, whatever's the one that kind of stuck. For some people, it's more dramatic than others, but every single person has this moment. At that moment, what happens is you reconnect to the moment of conception. The moment of conception is where metaphorically you were kicked out of heaven, Garden of Eden, or the Olympus. But now you have a story attached to all of that emotion, thought, and desire that you got at the moment of birth. So with the story between the ages of 0 and 7, your inner child is created as you would see him or her. We're going to talk about the moon sign, and the moon house, and how to give your inner child what he or she needs. What really happened at that moment is that your ego and your personality were created. The ego makes you feel separate. I don't belong in this family or this tribe because I am different. I am ugly. I am clubfoot like Hephaestus. I didn't get the academic achievement that everyone else has. Whatever the storyline is. So I talked to you previously about Chiron. So obviously Chiron and that initial wounding is involved here. So what happens? The biggest, scariest thing for any human being at any conscious or subconscious level is not feeling loved, not belonging. So belonging and love is found in the moon. So the anatomy of the moon is that it changes signs and phases about every 1 to 2 days. Wherever we have the moon in that house, our inner child is there seeking desperately to get his or her needs met, love and belonging needs, trying to get back into that womb, feel that attachment of I want to belong to this tribe or this family. And so this is how we show up. The moon sign is an emotional response that you're going to have, and it's also linked to the 4 unmet needs. This particular person has a moon in Gemini. It's going to be linked to validation needs. So your element will determine more or less what needs you're seeking, so to speak. This will also talk about your attachment style, and it will talk about the emotion that's attached to that impure thought or limiting belief from conception, so that you feel that you're part of the tribe, repeating the same behaviors, the same thoughts, the same desires as mom and dad, so that you feel that you belong. So in that 0 to 7 storyline, you want to identify your wound. But if you don't know it or you don't want to go there, you just go to your chart, look for your moon by sign and by house. So the moon is manipulative. The moon has no light of its own. The moon changes face as needed to get her needs met. That's what our inner child does. The problem is that we as adult children seek it outside. So this is what we do to others. Maybe in this person's case, she cheats or she has options, the multiplicity of Gemini in the second house. Maybe she goes out on a shopping spree. So however it is that you live out that moon sign and by house, you do it external. What happens is that your inner child is this big. She's shrunk in a corner, cold, wet, and hungry. Every time you seek that moon sign and house and phase, if you even go to that depth of astrology, and you can find your birth phase in your chart, or you can Google it. I have a book coming out where I talk about all of the significance of all of this. Then you can identify that you're doing this externally and that your inner child, who's cold, hungry, and lonely in the corner, is never getting any attention whatsoever. This makes us sicker and sicker and sicker. Eventually, we want to turn inward and nourish and meet the needs and love our inner child. So the way to do this using astrology, your moon sign and your moon house is the only sign you give to your inner child. This is how you give your inner child his or her needs. So let's just say Gemini is reading a book or multiple books or engaging in some intellectual pursuit. That serves the client, that serves you. And then the opposite sign is Sagittarius. That's how you treat others. That's what you give everybody else but yourself in terms of nurturance. This is how you start to decipher what you're giving your inner child and what is meeting your needs versus what is for every other person. So we're doing a massive reversal here where we become the parent and our inner child is actually getting his or her needs met via the moon, because the moon is a trick. The moon is a veil. The moon reminds us of our womb, what we presume is a symbiotic state. It's parasitic. We're seeking that mother or that emotion, that impure thought, that nurturance outside, making our inner child shrink even more. So you only give your moon sign and house to yourself. The opposite sign, and you can even go to the extreme of the opposite house if you want to do that. In this person's case, it would be Sagittarius in the 9th, but you don't have to go that far as to the house. You can even live it out as the house natally, but make sure to give everybody else, in her case, moon in Sagittarius and not moon in Gemini. Moon in Gemini is only reserved for yourself, your inner child. So I have a book called The Shadow Side of the Mother's Love coming out soon. And I will go into every moon, the shadow side of it, so that you know exactly what to give yourself versus what to give others. And you'll see how it's structured for both signs. Also, your moon phase. Your moon phase will speak to what you come to do in this lifetime. So now you can layer your moon phase linked to your moon sign, and that's what you give your inner child versus what you give others. So some of the things that we tend to do from a shadow perspective, and this is just a page from my book, is based on our element of our moon sign. We will seek to get our needs met in an unhealthy way. So if you have an earth sign moon, you're going to tend to be a scapegoat or overprotect. This is what you give now to your inner child. You overprotect her versus others. In terms of water signs, rescuers and victims is the archetype. You give that to yourself. You rescue her or you hold her when she's in a victim state, if she's feeling sad or lonely. Air signs tend to give empty promises, words, but no action. So for air signs, what you give to your inner child is you follow through on what you promised him or her. And fire signs tend to be aggressors and perpetrators in the system. This is from a shadow aspect. So give yourself the attention. Aggression sometimes is real intensity. So give that to your inner child because that's what he or she is asking. So a few other things that I just want to mention. You can go to my website and download the workbook that's going to be attached to the book. But this is sort of the way we seek attention when we get sick. Again, subconsciously, it's to get our needs met, right? Illness is oftentimes, for many people or children, the only way they got attention. So based on your moon sign, give your child, your inner child, this sort of attention. And here I've listed some of the primary emotions that you have with your particular moon sign. Remember, the emotion is attached to the thought and the body to make you feel part of the tribe. So if you could start to recognize, in my case, I used to be very hopeless and I had severe depression for several years. What I was trying to do, I was trying to meet my inner child's needs rather than externally get this from others. And I actually also had breast cancer. So this was an attempt for me to meet my inner child's needs, obviously in a very self-destructive way, because we don't have to get sick. So if you identify the body part that's linked to your moon, then you can even go into your self-care routine and take care of that even more, because it speaks to the psychology of your inner child and what he or she wants. Another thing that you can look at is your sign to understand your insecure or secure attachment style. I am a believer that nobody has a secure attachment style. Secure attachment style is when you start meeting the needs for your inner child and you develop that self-love and self-worth, then you have a secure attachment style with your inner child. I do not believe that any parental relationship is secure, but rather insecure. So this person, for instance, has a Libra moon. So let's talk about the different insecure attachment styles and the signs. If you have a Gemini moon, a Libra moon, an Aquarius moon, or a Capricorn moon, you tend to have a disorganized attachment style. So you want to do is whatever it is that you sort of dissociate from and you spread thin and overcommit to others, now do this with your inner child. So what externalized behaviors to seek your needs is now what you're going to start doing to yourself and only yourself. Aries, Leo, Scorpio, and Sagittarius have an avoidant style, so they tend to escape. Cancer, Pisces, Virgo, Taurus have an attached or an insecure, anxious style, very clingy and needy. So if you happen to have, like me, a Cancer moon, who I have to get clingy and needy to is myself and my inner child, rather than seeking this primordial person that's going to meet my needs externally. So this is how we start to use the astrology chart, specifically the moon sign. That house is also important, but the moon sign is most important in order to start listening to what our inner child needs. Thank you.